Buenos dias, damas y caballeros. Good morning, everyone. Guten Tag. Bonjour. Salam alaikum. Shalom. Thanks for joining me today. It is episode number 2523. It is 8:04 a.m. and I've been running late recently because I'm just doing too much in the morning, trying to squeeze in too much in the morning. Apologize for that. It's 8:04 a.m. here in Chicago. It is Thursday, the 24th of August, 2023. Derivatives trading is not necessarily derivatives trading is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. Here's where we stand overall on our dashboard from Convergent Trading, the pre-market summary sheet. We see the Nasdaq pushing and squeezing and pushing and squeezing. The Nasdaq's up 1%, which would normally put us in a risk-on mode. But if you look at everything else, you'll see that everything, because it's not happening today. I'm just not going to fight it. Let me know. I know there's a delay. Let me know if I'm back online. Am I back online? Am I back online? Okay. All right. So again, NVIDIA blowout earnings. They earned a lot more than expected. Big numbers. They're at the center of the AI boom. The numbers came out. Interesting response from the Nasdaq. It popped higher, pulled back, and then it just kind of traded in a gap the whole session. Jackson Hole is in play. Bullard says re-accelerating economy could put upward pressure on inflation and promote higher rates. Natural gas prices drop in Europe as major Australian exporter reaches agreement with trade union. And then in terms of the overnight and so on, in terms of the overnight, there's just durable goods that came in at negative 5.2 versus negative 4. Okay, so let's look at the technical side because that's what we're here for. Technical side, the S&P, again, active price discovery overnight, multi-distribution profile. We'll look at that in a minute. The volume's 225,000. 225,000 with the inventory 100% long because we're well above yesterday's close and settlement. Range 23.5 points is not as wide as yesterday's 27 or 28 points. Point of control shifting higher overnight, and in the day session, day to day, we see the market just shifting prices higher. Crude has come off quite a bit, just as expected and discussed. Let's take a look at what's going on in the big picture. So let's move to the S&P here. Really a pretty sweet reversal. We talked about this Friday having opened at the low, finished inside of this range, seeing as Thursday had a pretty poor structure on the sell-off. It kind of got ahead of itself. We gapped Friday down, we came back in, and then it was really important for buyers to continue to push on Monday, and they did. And this is where I started talking about Friday being a pivot price and kind of a rounding off of selling. Selling seems exhausted. They had a great opportunity to gap down, retest, and push lower down into 43.33 as we discussed, and it wasn't capable of doing that. So Monday we came in, we opened right up against this 43.96 if you recall, and we tested down, we extended down, and we end up with a neutral extreme up NEU type day. This is a day type. This really is a very strong signal or reversal near lows, at the low or near the low. The next day, however, was interesting in that we opened in a gap above, and then we came right back to the point of control the prior day and settled over that day's point of control. So we ended up triggering one-time framing up. We ended up maintaining one-time framing up, and yesterday was the kind of bullish trade that would start really putting a squeeze on, opening near lows. Yesterday we opened at 44.31 and a quarter, tested to 44. No, hang on. ¿Qué pasó aquí? No, yeah, 44.10 and a half. We tested to 44.09, and then we ended up with a normal IB. The early push really got us within 5 ticks at 44.30 for the IB high, the prior high at 31 and a quarter, with multiple tests. So the IB yesterday was a real obvious IB that would likely break, giving us the IB stat, and it did do that, and it did that while leaving behind single prints yesterday, right in the 44.30 and a quarter area, right in here. So 30 and a quarter is the bottom of singles. This is an important reference for later. 30 is also a low volume node here, and then we ended up getting some pretty good rotations to the upside, and then it stalled out, and we ended up with a P-shaped profile, a short covering profile. This morning we're pushing to where this is where we talked about on the buy side, 44.65, right? So we discussed, if you recall, we discussed 56. The price map for this week to the upsides, 56.50, 58.50. It's a naked point of control, okay? But the key number, 44.65. And who can tell me the key number above 44.65 that is the most likely test area above we continue, which, by the way, we're at 44.67. But you go back to every video this week, I've pointed this 44.65 as a key retest area to the upside, and here we are, and we managed to get up to 44.8550 with a low of 44.62. So we popped on Nvidia, and we ended up having an overnight session with a low of 44.62. So above, we're looking at, for those of you who are paying attention, 90 and 93. 90 and 93 right up here. So 90 and 93 is our big over under line, and that's the next big test area. So as soon as we get up here, we expect the market to expect those who are waiting to sell a bounce to start participating, and if they don't manage to flood the market with enough liquidity and volume to turn prices back down to below 65 from up there, which starts us down into 44.30 and then brings us back all the way down potentially to 43.80 and a new low. If they're not able to do that, then off to the races we go to 45.20 as the next key area right up here. 45.20 and then 45.50, and then we're within earshot of 4600 and the all-time or the year high at 46.35, right? 46.35 is the year's high, if I recall. So that's really the auction process of the map right now. I feel like my mic is popping a little bit, so I'm going to move it away. So that's where we stand. This morning, what am I looking for? So let's take a quick peek at how the auction is going overnight. So this is the overnight auction here. Yesterday, very clear. Look at those tiny counter rotations all through here. All right, this is the first big one right there. Tiny auctions all the way through. Tiny counter rotations all the way through, and pretty big rotations on the buy side, right? So impulses, look at all through here, there was not a single impulse down until this one. I mean, just stay off the short side. Stay off the short side. When we see that, we're above the open, we're above the day generated prices. Why short? Unless you have a major area coming up like this 65 or whatever, unless we're coming into that 65. And you can see we responded a little bit right here overnight to the 60 into the after the close into the Nvidia news. But since then, it's just been completely sideways, multi-distribution, but really mostly balanced profile. We covered some pretty good range in the overnight session. So when we zoom into the overnight session, we see that we actually have a pretty even kind of rotational back and forth with, look at the delta here, looks insane because the delta is price scale adjusted to yesterday's high delta, but overall doesn't seem like there's much commitment here this morning. So here's what I'm doing. So as we are below full session mid, full session VWAP, we're opening in a gap higher. We are opening against a multi-distribution overnight point of control, which doesn't really help because it can easily shift here, right? It can move down here. If we trade enough into the open, the point of control could go down to 65, and we know we have the 65 level right here. So and the first thing I'm going to do this morning, and I watch it here. Let me pull up the chart I actually look at all day long. Okay, so as soon as we open, I'm going to split these letters, and I'm going to be looking for and watching the breadth, in other words, advanced versus decliners. And I want to see, do we have a strong indication from advancers versus decliners? My guess is that the breadth this morning is going to be weak because this is really governed by a handful, maybe just a small handful of stocks. And the expectation this morning is we open, jiggle in the stock zone, and then I'm expecting it to really make its way back towards yesterday. And if you look at yesterday, if you look at yesterday's profile, let's split this. Really should be able to split your profile. It's so important because, I mean, yesterday's breakout here on the IB, you can see that with every bracket you got a really nice one time framing indication, and my stop is 3 ticks or a range extension below those, just to keep things simple. I've simplified a lot of things that I'm doing because the volatility is really not there. And then you start to see that, okay, it's faltering. It's starting to falter. I period, J period extends, I period, then J period. When it finishes, I would expect J period, K period versus J period to hold and then make a run for the I period high. And when it doesn't, it pretty much says, okay, you need to start looking at closing that position. And we ended up putting the widest number of TPOs right up here, giving us the point of control right in this 44.45 area and settling at 44.47. Lately, the market's been settling at close to or at its point of control. The volume point of control is just right underneath. So to me, this is likely to be the magnet here. And what that would do is give us a nice base, right? It would give us a nice base with, you know, the P shape right in here. And then we have single prints right there. It gives us a nice base to pull back to, consolidate, and then work ourselves out. As soon as we work ourselves out, now we're pushing the long side back into 65. So we're opening at 65. I'm expecting responsive selling. I'm expecting that most stocks are not going to participate in the push higher. We'll see if we do see that breadth is 700-800 plus on the open, meaning a lot more stocks are participating, and it starts to trend up, then I'm not going to fade this. But in general, I'm looking for this to create some sort of structure that I can lean against, whether it's the OS low, RTH mid, RTH VWAP, or something, to look to take the short into the overnight low of 44.62 for this current session, meaning starting at 5 Central, 6 Eastern, to give us the overnight stat. And then we have our gap trade. And then we have our gap targets at the overnight, yesterday's high, and then the key target beyond there is the gap to settle trade to 44.47, right? So that's your primary play. I'm going to leave it here. I know I didn't cover anything else, crude, NQ, whatever. NQ, actually, let's talk about that for a minute. NQ was expected to check right here, okay? And it is opening right on top of that area. The 15,334 to 15,350 was the next key area to check. I posted this yesterday in the Mavens channel on Convergent Trading. We talked about it, and we're opening right there. So we are kind of showing the same sort of thing in the NQ. The NQ is a lot stronger. But again, I'm expecting this thing to kind of get a few more bites on the NVIDIA push, but overall, and I'm, a 50-50 chance here, I'm expecting it to be responsive. If it's not responsive, then the NQ is very likely to push to the low volume node at 15,500 and move into the 15,550 point of control up there. This is expected to be the next big test area for the NQ. So if it does push higher, it's well within range of that 15,500 plus, and that's, that starts to be the area to watch out for. Again, you want to gauge the action based on what happens in this 34 to 50 area in the NQ. NQ, really sweet setups yesterday. Really nice long that just ran and ran and ran. But the NQ has multiple single prints, so it has single prints there, it has single prints there. So it has a little bit of weak structure once it gets below 15,150. So below 15,150, the NQ is very likely to kind of work itself back to the 15,013, 15,007, and 15,000 even. But we'll, not expecting that today. Be nice if it happened, because then we get some volatility, but that's how it looks. Okay, good luck, and I'll catch you tomorrow. Sorry about the technical details, technical issues. Just give us a thumbs up for this video anyway, and if you're not a subscriber to the channel, make sure you subscribe. It's free. It helps promote the channel, helps other traders, your friends and whomever, find this channel more easily when they do a search on trading or futures or whatever. Your subscription and your thumbs up helps others find me, and I appreciate your help doing that. It's the only thing I ask for. Good luck.